Well, I guess the quiet here means that you're ready to get started. Never heard that before. Usually I have to say, will you please settle down and quiet down? Usually it's not the audience that says, by their quiet, will you get started? So this is a first. The audience is clearly in control here. Welcome. My name is John Bullard. I'm president of the New Bedford Ocean Cluster. Thank you very much for coming out on a very cold day to our 2024 annual meeting. You have an agenda with other information at your seat. I hope you have it, and you can follow along. I have a really good welcome speech that Jen Downing has prepared, as she does. It's right here on the lectern. I'm not going to use it. So this meeting could go off the rails very quickly.
That's a fun thing, Joe.
Well, yeah. But I'll leave it here on the lectern in case you want to read this good speech. But I watched the inauguration yesterday. I'm sure a lot of you did as well. And so I scribbled some notes about what I want to say because yesterday was a momentous day. As you know, the New Bedford Ocean Cluster promotes 4 pillars in our mission. We want to build on our dominant position as the nation's #1 fishing port. We want to lead the way in developing the offshore wind industry. We want to expand opportunity in the rapidly developing marine aquaculture industry, and we want to secure a position in the exciting marine technology sector that can tie all of these things together. All these pillars are heavily influenced by the federal government. New Bedford's fishing industry occurs in federal waters and is governed by the New England Fishery Management Council. John Quinn, who is on our board, where are you, John? Chaired the New England Fishery Management Council. So he knows a lot about that. He was followed by Eric Reed as chairman. Eric does some work with us on the Fishing Advisory Center. So Eric, raise your hand. So Eric knows about that. I served as NOAA's representative on the council and was routinely hectored by Mayor Jon Mitchell, who told me how I could do that job in many better ways. So I know something about it. So our industry is heavily, and Eric Hansen from New Bedford serves on that council now. So our industry in New Bedford, the #1 fishing port, is heavily regulated by the federal government. Offshore wind operates largely under BOEM, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and with guidance from NOAA, fisheries, the FAA, and other federal agencies. Aquaculture here in the Buzzards Bay area has the brakes put on it because of FDA and others. And marine technology can be advanced with grants from EDA, NSF, NOAA, the Navy, and others. And yesterday, everything in the federal government changed a lot. An earthquake rolled into town. What does this mean for us? Who knows? What will I be saying this time next year? Who knows? I don't. What I do know is this is a time of both great challenges and great opportunities. This new administration doesn't like offshore wind, but it doesn't like regulations that are putting the brakes on aquaculture and making fishing even more difficult than it already is. What I also know is that at a time of great challenges and opportunity, what we need is clear vision and strong leadership. And that, my friends, is what we have in spades at the New Bedford Ocean Cluster. Let's start with our board of directors. Will all the directors please stand? You will find them listed in the program that I just showed you. All right, they're here. Scott Lima, Tony Sapienza, Dale Levitt, Cassie Canastra, John Quinn, Jen Menard, Ed Washburn, Gordon Carr, Mike Quinn. Who am I missing here? Oh, Chris Rezendes. We've got a lot of our directors here. Thank you very much for everything you do. They are listed in your program and give consistent, far-sighted vision and thoughtful oversight to our organization. Then our partners, the New Bedford Port Authority, with its leader, Gordon Carr, who sits on our board, meshes perfectly with us on how best to plan for and use the unique asset that is the world-famous Port of New Bedford. The New Bedford Economic Development Council, with its leader, Derek Santos, and chairman, Tony Sapienza, who sits on our board, helps with everything from personnel policies and office space to coordinating our work with the city's overall economic strategy. Then we have our advisory committees. They are our ears on the ground. Our Fishing Advisory Council was first out of the gate under the leadership of board members Cassie Canastra and Mike Quinn, with staff help from Eric Reed. This is a vital link to what makes us the #1 fishing port in the country, and how do we take maximum advantage of that. Next came the Aquaculture Committee. When Dale Levitt from our board asked the 30 smartest aquaculture people in the region to join our committee, every single one signed up. Committees on marine tech and offshore wind will be set up this year. Now our staff is small, but mighty. Please stand and be recognized. There's Carlos, there's Jen. And, oh, you're behind me. Eric, Eric, Dan. Eric Reed, there's Eric, handles fishery issues and has a national reputation earned as chair of the New England Fishery Management Council, where he succeeded John Quinn from our board, and from a lifetime in the industry. And he is wicked smart.
Going off the rails, John.
Gabriella Kearns is our outreach and events coordinator. She plans and carries out everything from tonight's meeting to international conferences that we host. Carlos Avilla, right there by the door, preventing anyone from leaving before I finish, is our business development manager. Membership is the key to NBOC's sustainability, and Carlos is spreading the word about what we do and why you should be a part of it. And Jen Downing is the executive director. Jen Downing is the eye of the hurricane. She is calm. She is clear, but she packs a wallop. She gets things done. We are so glad we hired Jen to lead us. She knows our mission and vision. She is energized by the turbulence you will always find on a working waterfront. like New Bedford's. And she uses that energy to organize us for progress. Like a good athlete, she makes it look easy. But you try it. It isn't. Please give a round of applause to our staff and partners and board. Speaking of clear vision and strong leadership, it's now my honor and pleasure to introduce Mayor Jon Mitchell. When you think of competitive advantages that the city of New Bedford has over other places with whom we compete, and I've heard Mayor Mitchell talk repeatedly about how we must compete, you must conclude that in Mayor Mitchell we have an incredible competitive advantage. He's led our city for 13 years, bringing us an unparalleled era of stability and growth, including, let me tick off a couple of things. Violent crime, down almost 60%. Educational reforms that have elevated the city's high school graduation rate to more than 80%. More than 5,000 trees that have been planted. The unemployment rate has fallen from 13% to 5%. But let's talk about the waterfront, because that is why we're here tonight. Take one look at the Port of New Bedford and you would swear the official bird should be the crane for all the construction that's going on. Because of Mayor Mitchell, our port is in the midst of the greatest transformation since the whaling era. That's when I was mayor. To the tune of more than 1.2 billion, that was billion dollars of public and private investment. What does that mean? More and better dock space, cleaner water, deeper channels, better fishery regulations, more jobs, today and tomorrow, clear vision, strong leadership. Mayor Jon Mitchell.
You know, I was about to get up here. Before you gave that very flattering introduction, John, I was about to say how much I missed hectoring you back in when you were at NOAA, but thank you for that. It's very much appreciated. Like this.
Like that, you want to hire.
This looks very jerry-rigged. All right, I won't move much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see everybody here today. John, thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And I want to start off by thanking you for all of your leadership here. You were the one who left yourself out of that litany of folks who've contributed so much to the growth and the upward trajectory of the Port of New Bedford. And again, I assure you that I will do everything to support the doubling of your salary as chair of the MBOC. You've earned every penny of it. And Jen, thanks for getting this thing off the ground. It's really launched. The MBOC is a thing, and you just turn around and see all the people who are here as part of it, all of, not just familiar faces, but people who are familiar to the waterfront, people who care so much about New Bedford, and people who have so much to offer the general effort. It'd be hard to find. I'll just say this. I was going to give a rousing speech today, but I left it in my office, so I'm going to just. I won't give that rousing speech. I'm going to do something that's more stream of conscious, but also just we spend a lot of time, because it is New Bedford, on marine-related matters. New Bedford is through and through a seaport. That is, we exist here because of the whaling industry and continue to exist because of what we do on the water, fishing and so many other things these days. And I think what I wanted to talk about a little bit today is really two things. Sort of what I see as sort of an inflection point for our work on the water. Part of it is the change in administration in Washington, but it's a lot of other things as well. And then just maybe talk specifically along the way about, some of those, some of the developments that people are very curious about, offshore wind. I mean, the executive order last night, and a number of other things. So I think we're at a point now where, looking back over the last 10 years, there's been last 10 or 12 years, there's been not just a lot of growth, but a lot of development, a lot of foundational development here in the port. And there's been a lot of change. Most of it, like any other period, it's not all good or bad. There are some things that are, need to be qualified. But by and large, we're in a much stronger position than we once were. So there has been, I mean, it starts with the infrastructure, and the infrastructure is important, and it doesn't happen without the geographic advantages and other advantages we have. But the infrastructure is really the foundation of everything, like literally. It allows, and a port, when you get right down to it, people ask, what's a port? Well, it's by the water. And a port's really just a transfer point. It's between sea and land for goods or for people. And that's all it is, really. So it is infrastructure. It's not dissimilar from a bridge. Really difference really is that it involves water and somebody's got to operate it, but it's basically the same thing. And so we've taken it upon ourselves to build out that infrastructure, and we've been really supported by the state government over many gubernatorial administrations, as well as by the federal government as well, and by a number of private sector investors, including many who are in the room today. So that has set us up well. It's set us up well to the point where most of it's kind of done. If you look around the port, and so many of you here will get out on the water and take a look at what's around. And you think of the stretch of waterfront, including over on the Fairhaven side, and including all the dredging that's been done, so much of it is done. What's really left is we've got a state pier we've got to address with the state, Homer's Wharf, the recreational marina. Those are the big ones. There's some berth dredging that has to happen, federal channel dredging, but by and large, the place has been rebuilt. And now we're at a point now where with that in place, or at least a pathway to finishing it, the modernizing of the hardscape of the port, we can start to think about all those other things that we do that are advantaged by the existence of the port. And so that's where a lot of this discussion comes in these days. And so we're at a point now where, and I'm going to hasten to add that we need everybody to be involved in this process. We're at a point now, because of the completion of certain things and the development of others, and the arising of opportunities and the changes in leadership in places, including in the federal government, that we need to really start to do planning, strategic planning in earnest. Like Gordon and I have been talking about the port strategic plan that started off when Ed Washburn was the port director. That ended by its own terms in 2023. So we don't have a plan that the MBOC has reached a point of liftoff that it needs a plan. There are new institutions that have materialized. So not just the MBOC, which is really a big addition to the port and to the city and bringing so many people together, including everybody here, but other institutions have come on board. The National Offshore Wind Institute, Jess Trombley's running that now. That's a big deal. If you haven't seen it, go take a look. She's got a big dunk tank in the middle of it. It's kind of a dunk tank. It's actually the sort of crash training center, but it's an incredible facility that is going to pay dividends for a long time. The Bedford Research and Robotics, that will have marine applications. The Quests, as we're calling it now, that is being built out with ARPA and Vineyard Wind funds. And then there's the Ocean Innovation, Energy Innovation Center that the Mass CEC is going to build on the waterfront. Place to be determined, but it is going to go forward. And so you have all these new institutions, not just more people working here, but new institutions in play. All these things have to work well together. So yet another reason why we need to get our heads together. And then there are all these developments within the industries that we play in. So in fishing, there's a lot going on. So for instance, I see people like Peter Anthony and Mike Quinn here, right? So we've talked in recent years about sort of what's going on with the decline in scallop volume, and what that means, and whether that's long-term, and how that's looking a couple of years out. I'm glad Eric Reed's here. I won't say too much about the northern edge. That's another thing that's on the minds of a lot of folks in the scalloping industry. So these are all things that are in play right now, because we're so reliant on scallops as an industry here. That's something that is really important. But there's lots of other stuff going on too. There's still the discussion around permit consolidation. That's another thing that's big in the scallop industry. That's something that's most certainly will come up. But lots of other things as well. What's going on with lobsters? It really runs the gamut. What we try to do in the Port Authority is to make sure that we're speaking about these things with some fluency, and with new folks at NOAA and even on the council. We're going to need to continue to press the case of our interest. And then there's wind. We've come a long way. There's a lot that's happened. Much of what's been built in the port would not have happened without the prospect of offshore wind. And certainly the last couple of governors, last three governors, certainly in the last presidential administration, the support for port projects has been, our selling point to them has been that this will be an offshore wind port. So however we use the facilities, and I think they should be used flexibly in the long run, they wouldn't have happened without the prospect of offshore wind. And now, of course, we've got Vineyard Wind, which is continuing to build out. I will hasten to add that I don't think the executive order is going to change that. I think that project will continue to go forward. It still has, after all, has one turbine that's been producing power right through all of this, and it has some 62 foundations that are out there. I don't think that's going to be undone by that executive order that just came down yesterday, but be happy to field questions about my opinion about what the implications of that are. But there's a lot going on there, and we need to be in that discussion with the federal government, and with the knowledge that, and I think this is a really important point, the offshore, the horse is out of the barn on offshore wind, and there's been a whole lot invested in it, and there's a lot has developed, and a lot of jobs turn on it. I think it will hit a bump in the next. It's hit a bump now. It will last some 4 years, but that's a bump. The reality is that America's energy demand is only growing with the proliferation of artificial intelligence and other big demand sources of demand for electricity. That's just going to grow. Climate change remains an issue, and it will remain an issue for a long time. And so the push to have more offshore wind, like Europe, like China, will persist as well. So, ultimately, as it's been before, it will continue to be incumbent upon us to say, we want offshore wind, we want fishing, we want to make sure the two coexist. We've seen a lot of, in the last year, some of that debate getting caught up in the presidential election with a lot of the national talking points. But at the end of the day, the question, it's a big ocean, and they should be able to both be out there safely and productively, and not, the idea isn't all one or the other. A lot of times these days our politics are that black and white when they don't need to be. So there's a lot going on there. And then there's a lot going on right now in marine tech, both for civilian as well as military applications. And I think we need to be in that space. We have pushed really hard to be a place where you can try out technology, where there's a whole lot of really innovative and can-do people on our waterfront who just get stuff done and are always willing to jump into something new. That's one of New Bedford's strengths. The culture on the waterfront really is all about just figuring stuff out, which is something that's endured, frankly, since the whaling days. But I think we're living in a time now where there's a whole lot of change going on, lots of new technologies coming to the fore, but a lot of sort of changes in the world that augur new applications. So I'll give you an example. We had I don't think I'll talk about this in general terms, so I don't want to give too much away, but we because I don't think I'm at liberty to do that. But, you know, we have a startup that Jen and Gordon have been working with that is looking at disposable sea lift vessels. And the idea is that as we've seen what's transpired in the wars in Ukraine and to a lesser extent in Gaza, you know, the heavy use of drones, the rapid evolution of that technology and what it might mean for the United States in a larger conflict, say with China, and what that might mean for sea lift. Right, in the Second World War, we could send fleets of merchant vessels to supply our armed forces in far-off islands. In a world where drones exist and can cheaply knock down a battleship, we have to think about all those things in a very different way. And so that includes having sea lift vessels that are autonomous and that are disposable. And so how do you develop something like that? It's really complicated. Well, there are people working on that, and so we're working with one particular startup that does that stuff. And I just use this as one example of an opportunity that the likes of which we should be embracing. There's a lot going on with sensors. Chris Rosendes can give you chapter and verse on that, but there's a whole lot concerning autonomous vessels out there. And we want to be a place where, you know, I joke that when new stuff comes up, that we're inspired by the tagline from the Bud Light commercial from a few years ago, that we're up for whatever. So we should be up for whatever. You want to try stuff out in New Bedford, try it out. And we do that. But I think there's a lot more that can be done, just given that we've got the space on the waterfront. We've got a lot of can-do people, and we're flexible. And that's the way to be, I think, in the long run. So there's a whole lot of planning that needs to happen, I think, to get to that point. And, you know, we're no longer a one industry port. We're a many industry port. And we have to continue to be. We have to continue to evolve as times change, as new technologies come on board, and as opportunities arise. That I think is the right approach. Fortunately, we have institutionally the pieces in place. We've got a whole lot of people, and this is where all of you come in, who really care a lot about the city. That's the starting point. You want your place moving forward. It's all about intentionality. And you don't get intentionality unless you love the place, and we all do. But that's step one. Step two is just being able to work together, and then step three is just having the know-how to make it happen. We have that here, and so as I look around the room, it's what's encouraging to me. Is that you don't get what we have here in too many places. Many places in the United States, including here in New England and not too far away, are complacent. And when it comes to generating wealth and competing and out against for the purpose of drawing investment in and creating jobs, we know we have to hustle, and we know and we're willing to compete. That's what we're doing, and if we continue to be oriented that way, a lot of good things are going to happen. And so, so there's been a change in Washington, but I don't see it as all downside. I think look, I mean, there's lots of issues here, and we live in a city where one candidate got 46% of the vote, and the other one got a little over 53% of the vote. So everybody's got family members who voted for one person or the other person. So there's no need for us to think about it in these sort of binary terms. It's all, when you get down to the New Bedford level, it's all about New Bedford, and there's, I think, a lot of opportunity ahead. So I look forward to working with everybody on that. And I think the first big step in the next few months is to really start a planning process that we hope all of you will be part of, because it'll set us up well, I think, for the foreseeable future. That's what I got today. Thanks, guys.
clear vision, strong leaders. That's what you need when you have, as we do, challenges and opportunities, as the mayor talked about. Now we've had the ad lib portion of the program, so we're back on the controls section. I will thank you very much for your remarks, Mayor, and you know, the mayor was down in Washington over the weekend, not just representing the city of New Bedford, but working long days on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and then working here on Monday. This job that he has on our behalf is one that does not break down into work days and then non-work days. It is all the time, and we do appreciate what you do on our behalf, Mayor Mitchell. So I will now officially call the 2024, yes, I do know that it's 2025, but this is the 2024 annual meeting of the New Bedford Ocean Cluster to order. Our first item of business, fasten your seatbelts, this is the exciting one, is approval of the minutes from our 2023 annual meeting held on January 25, 2024, which have been distributed to board members. I have read them. I find them very accurate, and I know, knowing our board as I do, that you have all read them as well. I'd like to request that our outgoing clerk, Jennifer Menard, please move forward a motion to approve the annual meeting minutes of January 25th, 2024. Do what? Jen? That's a motion. I heard that, yes. Do I hear a second? Second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the question. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? It is a vote. The minutes of January 25th have been approved. With that, we'll now move on to special reports. At this time, I'd ask Jennifer Menard, Regional Director for the South Coast Cape and Islands for the Massachusetts Office of Business and Economic Development. That is a new title, by the way, to deliver the Treasurer's Report. I will note that Jen has been serving as NBOC's Treasurer and Clerk since our launch in 2021. This is Jen's last evening as Treasurer. More on this later. And we want to thank her for her dedicated service and participation on the NBOC's Executive Committee over the last 3 years. Jennifer, it's all yours.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. This is, I'm afraid to touch this. So good evening, everybody, and thank you, President Bullard. Fiscal year 2024 was a strong year for the New Bedford Ocean Cluster. The organization continues to make great strides developing its role as a marine business association and an industry convener, expanding its ACT local supply chain development program and business development strategies, and engaging a wider network of ocean industry stakeholders across all 4 of our pillars. Can everybody hear me? Okay, despite the fact that the microphone's way up here. I am proud to say that we ended our 3rd year of operations in a positive financial position. Strong support from partners like the New Bedford Port Authority, Vineyard Wind, and others continued for another year, and together contributed $327,000 in key operating and program funding. We received a final year of funding in the amount of $18,750 from the New Bedford Economic Development Council, or the NBEDC, and SBA to continue to serve as a spoke partner for the very important NB 100 program. This is aimed at promoting entrepreneurship in New Bedford. We also received ARPA funding in the amount of $184,862 from the City of New Bedford. and a grant of $25,000 from the South Coast Community Foundation's South Coast Wind Fund to support our Act Local program. In fiscal year '24, we also saw significant growth in membership, which contributed another $71,150 in revenue to support the organization's general operations and membership activities. The success of our industry events was apparent in fiscal year '24 with, now I'm scared of the microphone, $47,040 raised in corporate sponsorships, as well as $47,251 earned in event revenue. Finally, we received $1,493 in donated goods and services. In total, our revenues this past year totaled over $722,000, actually exactly $722,717, and we ended the year with net assets of 283. I think that sound was exactly for that moment. We ended the year with net assets of $283,487. Fiscal year '24, it is fiscal year '24, financial audit has been completed by Lisa Aldrich, CPA, and is in the process of being reviewed by the MBOC Board of Directors. If you'd like a copy of this audit, please get in touch with Jennifer Downing, and we'll be happy to provide it to you once it's available in late February. I now have and this was my last report, so thank you very much to the board. I'm very excited. It was a wonderful opportunity to be a part of the executive committee of the MBOC. I will now ask John Quinn, Assistant Dean of Public Interest Law Programs and External Relations at the University of Massachusetts School of Law in Dartmouth and Chair of our Governance Committee, to deliver his governance report.
Thank you very much, Jen. And Jen Downing provided me some notes, and as much as I'm tempted to go rogue like John Bullard, I'm going to stick to the script. The New Bedford Ocean Cluster Governance Committee regularly meets to nominate and recruit board members and establish ethical standards, values, and compliance measures. As we continue to define our role and strategic direction, regular review of the organization's bylaws is essential to ensure that they reflect the organization's mission, vision, and operational needs. To that end, the Governance Committee proposes an amendment to the New Bedford Ocean Cluster's bylaws that will require a vote at today's meeting. And I will briefly explain the vote. It was determined that Article 2, Section 2, entitled Directors, requires an amendment to increase the size of the board by 1 to the total of 16 members, with the additional member to represent a member of the community. Please note, as per the bylaws, Article 6, Section 8, the revision was presented to the full board in writing in advance of today's meeting. So I propose the following motion: to strike Section 2, Directors of Article 2, entitled Board of Directors, and insert therein the following language. The Board of Directors shall consist of 16 members, 2 members representing the commercial fishing and fish processing industries, 2 members representing the offshore wind industry, 1 member representing the aquaculture industry, 1 member representing maritime-related technology and innovation industries, 1 member representing an unspecified maritime industry, 2 members representing higher educational institutions, 1 member representing the Economic Development Council, 3 members representing the community, with 1 member appointed by the mayor and 2 members appointed by the Board of Directors, 1 member appointed by the mayor as his designee, and 1 member specializing in workforce training, and 1 member representing organized labor. Since this is a committee motion, it doesn't need a second. Do I hear any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Next item before you, in accordance with Article 2, Section 2.1 of our bylaws concerning the nomination and election of board members and officers, the NBOC may onboard qualified candidates outside of the annual meeting. To that end, we're pleased to share that Liz Wiley, Executive Director of the Marion Institute, was elected to the board in FY '24 to serve as one of our community representatives for a 2-year term. With her extensive experience working to advance food security across the South Coast region, Liz is bringing a valuable perspective to the board. In addition to the board, Liz is actively engaged with the NBOC's Aquaculture Advisory Committee. Is Liz here? Liz is not here? Okay. I will now move into the board and officer appointments for election at today's meeting. The nominating committee nominates Ed Washburn, Managing Director and Partner for Coastline Transfers, to serve as an offshore wind representative on the board for a 3-year term that will expire in 2027. Do I hear a motion to re-elect Ed Washburn as presented? No move. Do I hear a second? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Washburn. Next, the nominating committee nominates Jennifer Menard, Regional Director for the South Coast, Cape and Islands for the Massachusetts Office of Business and Economic Development, to serve as a community representative on the board for a 3-year term to expire in 2027. Do I hear a motion to re-elect? Do I hear a second? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted. Up to the next one, nominating committee nominates Tony Sapienza, Chair of the Board of New Bedford Economic Development Council, to represent the designated NBEDC seat on the board for a 3-year term to expire in 2027. Do I hear a motion to re-elect Ms. So moved? Second? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. If those re-elected members would kindly stand to be recognized, and we want to thank you for your commitment to serve. At this time, I also want to give special thanks to Kevin Rose, the president of the International Longshoremen's Association Local 1413, who is cycling off the board this evening for his service over the last year. We thank Kevin, and we look forward to working with him in the ILA as an important member of our maritime community. I don't think Kevin is here, but we want to thank him for his service. I will now move into the nomination of board officers. The nominating committee nominates the following slate of officers: President John Bullard, Vice President Ed Washburn, Treasurer and Clerk Scott Lima. Do I hear any additional nominations from the floor? Seeing none, may we have a motion to accept the slate of officers? So moved. Second. All in favor say no. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. So congratulations, everyone. And fortunately, that concludes our elections, and I now want to call upon Carlos Avila, Business Development Manager, to deliver a membership report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. As you can see, with the cold weather, things freeze, so I apologize for the tech input. We'll try to reboot that soon enough. Here we go. So good afternoon. FY24 was a great year for membership growth at the New Bedford Ocean Cluster, one defined by collaboration and growth. The most successful cluster organizations have established businesses, startups, public agencies, universities, and other industry stakeholders actively engaged in their mission and enabling critical network, and the enabling critical network affects the drive innovation to lead and improve competitiveness in our area. At the NBOC, our industry advisory committees and growing roster of member companies are combining their experience and expertise to address business challenges and strategies to optimize their business and bring greater value to their respective industries. As Jennifer Menard mentioned in the Treasurer's Report, the NBOC's membership continues to grow and is made up of a diverse group of established local companies like Imtra, Fathom Resources, innovative startups like New England Marine Monitoring, and Ithaca Clean Energy. Key waterfront services like Shoreline Offshore and Blue Ocean Point Services, and global companies like Atlantic Oceanic and Avangrid and Altura. We're excited to be working closely with this committed network that shares our vision of sustainable and thriving maritime economy in Greater New Bedford. Over the last year, the NBOC organized industry events, convenings that allowed members and broader businesses of the community network to make valuable connections and access knowledge and resources to support the growth of their business and industry. Our members received direct technical assistance customized to their needs that led to new business partners, qualified workers, and other resources. The NBOC also attended a variety of industry trade shows and conferences here in the U.S. and overseas, where our goal was to promote our member companies,
port infrastructure, and other industry assets in New Bedford to ensure that we continue to attract investment and new businesses to our waterfront and region. In 2025, we look forward to offering new events including member mixers and sector-specific supplier events to provide more opportunities to network and showcase your business. The New Bedford Ocean Cluster remains committed to fostering connections, driving innovation, and elevating the port and city's unique advantages as a key player to the regional blue economy. This year's successes are a reminder of what we can accomplish together, but they're also an invitation to dream even bigger for the years to come. So I say thank you to every member represented here tonight. Your dedication, ingenuity, and hard work make this cluster a model for what is possible when we come together with purpose. Let us continue to chart a course for success, not only for ourselves, but for future generations who will call New Bedford and the surrounding waterfronts their home. Thank you. I will now ask Scott Lima, MBOC board member, to deliver the DEI committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, and good afternoon. Steeped in New Bedford's history is a maritime industry and workforce of immigrants hailing from places like Cape Verde, Guatemala, Norway, Nova Scotia, Vietnam, and Portugal. Drawing on their strengths of this immigrant workforce, the Port of New Bedford has grown to become the most valuable fishing port in the country. Like the days of whaling, New Bedford is once again at the center of an ocean industry that promises wealth and prosperity for its citizens. Offshore wind continues to evolve in our port and across the region, and we are increasingly seeing marine technology startups making New Bedford their home to test and launch innovations that will make our marine economy more efficient, safe, and sustainable. As we work to grow our ocean economy, we must not forget that New Bedford and its diverse immigrant workers lit the world as whalemen generations ago. We all have the responsibility of ensuring that the city of New Bedford's history and diverse communities are preserved and strengthened as our maritime cluster grows. The MBOC's DEI committee continues to be an important facet of the organization to ensure that our actions to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in New Bedford's marine economy are informed and supported by the community. Made up of members of the community, the DEI committee meets regularly and brings years of experience working in environmental and racial justice, organized labor, workforce, government, and more. In FY24, and with funding from Vineyard Wind, we piloted an outreach, equity, and inclusion fellowship to support DEI across the organization. The vision for the annual fellowship is to engage a local individual in community engagement activities to inform underrepresented individuals and businesses in New Bedford of job, training, and technical assistance opportunities with a goal of increasing the participation and leadership of underrepresented groups across our pillar industries. In addition, the goal is for fellows to gain exposure to industry, observe and shadow meetings, be responsible for special projects, and participate in events to feed curiosity and develop professionally. Our intention is to continue the fellowship on an annual basis as funding allows. In FY24, the MBOC also supported the National Offshore Renewables Trade Association Oceanic Network with their series of offshore wind-ready industry trainings that took place in New Bedford. MBOC staff contributed knowledge of the local community and supply chain to support interested minority-owned businesses to understand opportunities in the growing offshore wind industry and how their products and services may fit into the supply chain. Over the last year, the MBOC was also proud to support the Old Bedford Village with a series of access to opportunity forums that took place in New Bedford and Wareham to raise awareness of job and training opportunities to ensure equal opportunity for all local citizens in the offshore wind industry. In 2025, we look forward to our continued partnership with Old Bedford Village by supporting the implementation of a recently awarded EPA grant to connect the local community with job and training opportunities. The MBOC's DEI committee will play an active role in the project by serving as a liaison between contractors and the local workforce to ensure transparency and equitable access to job opportunities for the local community. The MBOC remains steadfast in its commitment to have hard conversations, hold ourselves accountable, and take actions that address inequities and create opportunities for New Bedford's citizens in today's blue economy. I will now ask Cassie Canastra, Director of Operations for Bay Seafood and the co-chair of the Fisheries Advisory Committee, to deliver the Fisheries Advisory Committee report. Cassie, your report, please.
Thank you, Scott. An important role of the NBOC is to serve as a convener of the local maritime industry and to facilitate discussion, coordination, and the development of strategies to grow and strengthen our 4 pillars. The NBOC's pillar advisory committees are made up of local companies and industry stakeholders that meet on a regular basis to identify shared challenges, needs, and opportunities for business growth. These special interest groups are a critically important element of the NBOC's organizational structure, ensuring the cluster's strategies and programs are consistent with the business interests of the port and the surrounding region. The intention is also to serve as a breeding ground for ideas that can lead to cutting-edge projects and market growth. Established in 2023, the NBOC's Fisheries Advisory Committee, or FAC as we call it, continues to offer valuable input into the strategic direction of the NBOC's commercial fishing and processing pillar. The goal of the FAC is to support the continued growth of New Bedford's commercial fishing industry and to help local fisheries to derive more value from the seafood they land and process, and to discover new ways to optimize their businesses. The FAC is also an essential voice in establishing a mutually beneficial relationship and forum for regular discussion and coordination between the fishing and offshore wind industries. By participating on the FAC, member companies receive regular updates from the NBOC on local and national offshore wind development. In fiscal year 24, the FACT continued to support efforts to explore potential use of local vessels to conduct an industry-based trawl survey to complement the trawl survey being done by the National Fisheries Science Center's research vessel Bigelow. An industry-based survey conducted in parallel with the research vessel Bigelow survey would help to mitigate survey interruptions, provide additional biological data to be used in the stock assessment process, and could expand the overall footprint of the survey in the greater Atlantic region. Industry-based survey data could also be valuable when developing mitigation measures for offshore wind development impacts on fishery independent surveys. The FACT is also supportive of the NBOC's ongoing efforts to understand, clarify, and advocate for standardization requirements and protocols for local vessels to qualify for contracts to support offshore wind development. In fiscal year 24, the NBOC organized important convenings between local vessel owners and offshore wind developers with the goal of establishing a connection and line of communication between both industries, to provide developers the opportunity to discuss their project and relevant job scopes with the local fishing industry, and to provide a much-needed space for fishing to share their experiences and lessons learned to support responsible development of offshore wind, and to improve and streamline local hiring of commercial fishing for future projects. Through the NBOC, the FACT will continue to provide input into standardization efforts and will be an important gateway to identifying local fishing vessels that want to be put to work. With that goal in mind, in fiscal year 24, the NBOC expanded its ACT Local Supply Chain database to include a local vessel directory. The directory categorizes vessels by type, size, and other key specifications. The directory will soon be live in the NBOC's online community portal. Finally, a high priority project for the FACT is to commission a comprehensive white paper examining the socioeconomics of the Port of New Bedford with a focus on the supply chain and a goal of understanding key challenges, opportunities, and strategies to advance the commercial fishing and offshore wind industries and ensure both industries' success. The NBOC is actively seeking funding to support the study and hopes to get the study underway in 2025. Thank you, and I will now ask Dale Levitt, owner of West Island Oysters and the chair of the NBOC's new Aquaculture Advisory Committee, to provide an update on the group's progress. Dale, over to you.
Where'd you find that picture? Where am I here? Good evening. As everyone has said, my name is Dale Levitt. I'm co-owner of Blue Stream Shellfish, and we are the distributor of one of the finest oysters on the East Coast, the West Island oyster. I have to get a marketing plug in there somewhere. In FY24, the NBOC launched its Aquaculture Advisory Committee, and to offer guidance in the strategic direction of NBOC's aquaculture pillar, and to develop a set of priorities and collective actions to grow the local industry. Our committee is comprised of a really enthusiastic group of local oyster farmers, academic researchers, equipment suppliers, and harbor representatives. While the local aquaculture industry is still in its infancy, it does face significant challenges, and the NBOC recognizes the enormous potential of aquaculture, not just to fuel our maritime economy, but to contribute to food security and to improve water quality. So in FY24, the committee prioritized several regional issues for collective action that are going to happen in 2025. And these include trying to deal with the widespread shellfish harvest closures that are caused by our increase in the heavy rain events and the CSOs, combined sewer overflows, that have significantly interrupted our harvest operations. We are trying to address public resistance, limiting the growth of aquaculture in areas and access to our waterfront. We are going to be trying to deal with limited and misinformation about the benefits of the industry, and we're going to try to influence what turns out to be a very long and complicated permitting process that makes it really challenging for new businesses to get off the ground and/or to expand their scale. So efforts to break down industry silos and align advocacy and business development strategies have been limited in this region. So we're hopeful and excited about the work that the MBOC can get new initiatives off the ground to benefit local aquaculture. As you know, NBOC has 4 industry pillars. We're excited to launch the NBOC's Innovation and Technology Advisory Committee and Offshore Renewable Energy Advisory Committee this coming spring. If your company is interested in your being involved in these important interest groups, please contact our Executive Director, Jen Downing. And with that, I'll hand over the meeting to Jen now that to give our final report for the annual meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Dale. And thank you all for joining us today for our annual meeting. It's really gratifying to see so many of you here that share in our interest and enthusiasm for our mission at the MBOC and what we're trying to grow. John and the mayor started this meeting talking a lot about times of change, call for leadership and vision. I couldn't agree more. When I think about the need for leadership and vision, and what that really means for me in the wake of the new administration, in light of the big issues that continue to challenge our pillars, and where I need to keep my mindset and focus as I continue to try to lead this organization. For me, that comes down to perseverance, and it comes down to the MBOC's why, our purpose for being. When our founders started the MBOC, they were intentional about launching a cluster organization that would ambitiously try to grow and align 4 different maritime industries. 4 industries that have some similarities, but are more different when you consider their histories, their beliefs, their markets, their supply chains. We could have created the New Bedford Offshore Wind Cluster, or the New Bedford Fishing Cluster, but that approach would have been way too easy and certainly would have sold our port, city, and region short of its true potential. Our founders knew there was enormous possibility for long-term economic growth and prosperity for more people and businesses if we could tap into the similarities and find out and create more integration and diversity among our maritime industry in the port. The MBOC was not created with the understanding that it would be an easy path to success. Our founders chose the hard path because it's the hard path that most often leads to meaningful, long-lasting success. So, what does it take on both a macro and micro level in DC, at the state level, here in New Bedford? A lot of work. Coordination, relationship building, trust, compromise, collective problem solving, reinvention, and a little humanity. All of this is paved with challenges and will require dedication and a commitment to our purpose to overcome. Some things we may not be able to change right away. That's just the reality. But there are always steps we can take to move closer to our vision. We can look back on 2024 and see examples of this across the maritime industries that the MBOC serves. That should inspire us as we continue to chip away at our goals. While the aquaculture industry is challenged by several issues like CSO closures and burdensome permitting, like Dale mentioned, local oyster growers are working right now with the Nature Conservancy to expand a restoration area with seed oysters in Little Bay Fairhaven to jumpstart wild oyster growth. For 23 consecutive years, the Port of New Bedford has remained the highest grossing commercial fishing industry in the U.S., despite unreasonable quotas that continue to challenge our fishing industry and stifle our full potential. Massachusetts recently signed the Mass Leads Act, a huge economic development bill, which dedicates $4 million to support climate technology and $100 million for an AI hub to boost innovation. And while the offshore wind industry in the U.S. continues to be hit by inflation, supply chain issues, and wavering commitments, the state of Massachusetts remained steadfast in its vision and commitment to energy independence and transforming our economy, and announced its largest offshore wind procurement across 3 major projects, and the Port of New Bedford was central to each project's plan. Now, I realize these projects have big challenges ahead of them, but the procurement alone says so much about what we have accomplished: major investments secured, new and improved port infrastructure, successful advocacy, all wins along the way that put our state in this very strong position. Again, these are all wins that should inspire us to continue to chip away at our goals. The progress reported today has offered you all a good snapshot of the MBOC's work over the last year. But before we wrap up, and I realize I am holding us back from drinks and networking, I'd like to highlight a few more achievements that I'm proud of, and some additional plans underway for this year. So in 2024, the MBOC continued to facilitate industry networking and connections by organizing business-to-business focused events and programs. This year, we held our 2nd annual Offshore Wind Conference, and it turned out to be another incredible gathering of industry leaders from the US and European markets. We had local businesses, we had startups, public agencies from Massachusetts and beyond. We worked hard to up our game this year by adding more sponsors, programming, tours, and time for networking, and we were successful on all fronts. Like large national conferences, ours in New Bedford included a special pre-conference event that was very, very technical, way over my head, on offshore cables in partnership with a major trade association from the UK, the Global Underwater Hub. We offered 29 main conference sessions that included keynotes, plenaries, panel discussions across multiple tracks. We had 78 speakers that contributed to the program, representing industry, public sector, workforce training, nonprofits, and the building trades. The program included a port tour and multiple facility tours across the city so attendees could experience firsthand our city's amazing assets and resources. Over the last 2 years, we've been able to test our capacity to host a major conference with a burgeoning industry like offshore wind. Its success demonstrates the value of such convenings to our business development efforts. And in 2025, we will build on the success of the last 2 years and expand the scope of our conference to focus on the full breadth of our blue economy, to include programming that spans our 4 pillars. Our 3rd annual Ocean Economy Conference is scheduled for October 1st through 3rd, 2025, so please save the date. The MBOC's efforts to support and attract businesses and investment to New Bedford continued with great momentum in 2024. The MBOC traveled to the UK, Canada, and Netherlands to share our experience and knowledge and to explore opportunities for partnership and investment. And we participated in a variety of national conferences too to keep New Bedford front and center. The MBOC was also key to organizing a visit to New Bedford from the European Union and its member states, consisting of commercial and trade counselors from Belgium, Italy, Spain, Hungary, Ireland, Portugal, Czech Republic, and more. Attending industry conferences, participating in international discovery trips, and hosting trade delegations will pave the way for local industry growth and shows that the world recognizes the city's leadership in key markets like fishing and offshore wind. Locally, we continue to provide direct support to local businesses and facilitate valuable industry connections through our Act Local Supply Chain Development Program. In 2024, we partnered with Vineyard Wind to produce a series of video shorts to highlight local companies that have successfully expanded their business to support offshore wind. Our Wind Energy Now video campaign will be rolled out over the next few months. And unfortunately, because our tech isn't working, I can't show you one tonight. I had intended to give you a little teaser of what those were going to look like, but you'll just have to wait. They'll be out soon. At last year's annual meeting, I shared that the MBOC, along with local partners in southeastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island, came together to launch the Southeastern New England Ocean Tech Hub. I reported then that the Ocean Tech Hub was one of 31 federally designated tech hubs out of 400 applicants from across the country by the U.S. Economic Development Administration, and ours was the only tech hub specializing in ocean technology. Tech Hub designation represents a strong endorsement of a region's plan to supercharge a critical technology ecosystem and puts the region in a strong position to receive federal funding. I'm pleased to report that because of our efforts through the Ocean Tech Hub, the MBOC, along with New Bedford Research and Robotics, MassHire Greater New Bedford, and many agencies from Rhode Island, will be supporting a recently approved EDA grant focused on demand-driven workforce trainings in ocean robotics, sensors, and materials industries. While the $4 million award is small when we consider the size and scale of federal grants and how many partners are at the table, the project demonstrates that there are benefits to increased regional coordination and helps to solidify New Bedford as a key hub for blue technology. Over the last year, the city has continued to develop and enhance its port infrastructure and assets so that we are responding to the private sector needs. We want potential industry partners to be confident when they do business in New Bedford, they'll have what they need to be successful. So to that end, in 2024, we were pleased to announce, alongside with our partner Vineyard Wind, the city, and MBEDC, the renovation and rebranding of the Quest Center into the Quest, New Bedford's enterprise hub. Made possible by a joint investment between the City of New Bedford and Vineyard Wind in the amount of $3 million, the new Quest will be renovated from top to bottom, including a new entry lobby, atrium stairs, common areas, but most significant to New Bedford, and as we've been planning for some time, the third floor will become a dedicated work and convening space for maritime businesses. The floor will serve as a cluster house where we can invite companies to set up shop, build their business, and plug into the ecosystem here in New Bedford. In 2025, we will continue to support the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center in their efforts to develop an ocean renewable energy innovation center here in New Bedford, and to be a center for research and the testing and development of ocean energy technologies. And then finally, in 2024, we beta tested and launched our new community online portal to serve as a clearinghouse for industry information and engagement across our 4 pillars. The portal houses our Act Local Supply Chain Directory, interactive communities, and an events calendar and more. And in the coming year, we intend to commit more resources to activate the portal and ensure it's of value to our members. We're pleased with our progress. We know there's so much more to do, but I want to thank the New Bedford Board, my staff, and all our supportive members and partners. We always welcome your input as we continue to grow the organization, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, concerns, or ideas you think we should hear. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Jon Bullard to close our meeting, but thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jen. If there's a takeaway from what you've heard, it's that this coming year is going to be an exciting year. There are challenges and there are opportunities. And it's a time of uncertainty. As Jen said, we didn't choose easy. We chose hard. But the stakes are important for our city, and everyone here has a stake in that. And we need your participation to solve the challenges, to take advantage of the opportunities. And so I ask you, as president of the board, find a way to participate with us. As a member of the NBOC, as a member of one of the advisory committees, we need your participation on this. This is going to be a very creative year, a very creative year. And as the mayor said, we're going to need a strategic plan for the port that means so much to all of us. So there's plenty of seats at the table. If you're here tonight, it's because you care about that. So we need your help. And talk to Jen or Carlos or me or any member of the board to find a way to do that. It's going to be a very creative year. So I want to thank you, Mayor Mitchell, for coming as you always do. I know that the Port of New Bedford is not just a professional interest of yours, it's a personal, familial interest of yours, and you always inspire and educate us. I appreciate your coming. I want to thank the board of directors and staff, and I want to thank everyone here for taking time out of your day to join us. We're going to have a reception out. I did notice as I came in, there's a bar out here with drinks, which can facilitate discussion. So take advantage of that. And I want to remind the board of directors, our next regular board meeting is Friday, February 14th at 8:30 in the morning. So please bring your Valentine's Day cards with you to the meeting. And it's at the, I keep wanting to say Quest Center. It's at the Quest, okay? And so with no further items on the agenda, I'd ask to the board if there are any items of old or new business. Hearing none, I declare the annual meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.